Yeah, so my name's James Russell and I'm the lead designer for the Total War series at Creative Assembly. So the time period that we're going to cover, without getting into specific dates, we want to get in the whole sweep of Roman history. So from the mid-Republic time of the Punic Wars, all the way up to the kind of height of the Roman Empire. I mean, we want to really get in that transition from Republic to Empire. We want the player to be facing dilemmas like, you know, do I save the Republic or do I make a play to become Emperor? We're doing Rome in a different way than we did it before. So as you've said, it's a single. Rome is going to be a single faction, not three separate allied factions. But we're really determined to make sure there's a real sense of kind of internal conflict in terms of family rivalry, political intrigue, and kind of machinations of the Senate. So we want the player, as I said, to be thinking things like, do I save the Republic? Do I make a play to become Emperor? So we want to make sure that there's family rivalry, there's rival characters that might betray you. You're going to have to make choices, personal choices, like do you save the Republic or do you try and become Emperor? So it's going to be different from Rome 1. It's not going to be like traditional different factions to represent Rome, where you end up having different territory. It's going to be internal conflict. So yeah, we're still looking at the precise details of exactly how the Senate's going to work, but we want to make sure that it's definitely a source of tension for the player. But it's also we also want to get in the idea that the player needs to manoeuvre for position within the Senate. So we're looking for different ways that can work. Every title we try and make changes to the economic system that really relate to the time period and what that economic world was like. So for instance, with Shogun 2 we introduced the concept of food because it was an agrarian economy in a way that you didn't have in Empire Total War, right? So in the Roman world we want to try and get in we want to try and update the economic system to reflect the realities of the Roman world. But you know, you're still obviously managing your empire. It's not all just about conquest and fighting. But one of the things that we want to do, because we've got a massive campaign world, it means that to stop there being just a crazy number of regions, we've got in a province system which kind of really helps streamline the gameplay, whereby you have a province that is made up of several different regions. So you only have to manage one province, and therefore you can automatically manage a number of different regions. And what that means is that we can have a lot of strategic depth in terms of lots of different regions to conquer, but you don't have to, you know, manage hundreds and hundreds of different kind of management nodes. So the province system really streamlines the gameplay. So it will change the nature of how you manage your economy. Yeah. Well, we're actually making some interesting changes to the combat system and to the morale system, and I think it's just a matter of really getting that balance right. So we really think that some of these changes are going to improve the gameplay, create more interesting kind of tactical choices in terms of unit matching, but also in terms of the way that morale works. I think we can make it more understandable for the player, clearer, and actually, you know, hopefully work really well. With every Total War title, you know, we do strive to portray the setting that we're representing in the most kind of authentic way possible. You know, absolutely. But at the same time, you know, what we do is we look for some of the really interesting and outlandish content that we can find that really did appear in that era, and we want to put that in the game. So, I mean, you know, a classic example is things like flaming pigs, and you know, a lot of people didn't like that, but you know, there is evidence that they were used in one or two battles in certain ways, and we do look to put in interesting units like that, but we do it where there's a real gameplay purpose for it. So that's the real key. We're not going to make up units that didn't exist. We don't want to put things in the game that were not there in reality. But you know, we may put things in that didn't necessarily get used a lot. You know, the battlefields are auto-generated for the most part around the campaign. I mean, what's interesting about the Roman world is I think we've got a much bigger campaign map than in the original Rome. So we've got a huge variety of environments and a huge variety of kind of climate types, huge variety of cultures. So I mean, variety is a big part of what the Roman world is all about for us, and why we're excited about this game. It's very different from, you know, Shogun 2, where everything is set in a Japanese landscape with Japanese units. So in the Roman world, we've got barbarian tribes in the northern forests. We've got kind of exotic kingdoms in the eastern deserts. You've got Rome itself. The landscape's very different. And we really want to get in that sense of variety. And in terms of the cities, I mean, the city environments are epically big. They're much bigger than we've ever done before in terms of the siege battles. We got multiple capture points, which really kind of changes the gameplay. You know, we've also got cultural variations, different kinds of buildings. You've got barbarian kind of buildings, you've got Eastern style buildings, you've got Greco-Roman style buildings. I mean, we've got a big art team that is just there making different buildings to really create a different sense of place when you're fighting in these battles. So we hope we can achieve that. Yeah. Well, combined battles are a big feature for us. So yeah, we've got ships with units that disembark and fight on land, and we've got shipborne artillery that can bombard cities. And as you said, navy's going to be bigger and better. So each naval unit is made up of multiple ships, which really adds to the sense of scale. So you know, that's something that I think is part of what we're trying to do in terms of pushing both ends of the spectrum, that unique spectrum that Total War offers between detailed close-in combat between individuals, and then you zoom out and you see thousands upon thousands of soldiers fighting it out. That spectrum of scales that you've got, we really wanted to push both ends of that. So on the large scale, we've talked about these epic city environments and these and combined battles and bigger navies. But we're also, I mean, a big part of it is really pushing how the combat looks at the close-in level. So we really want to make the fighting between men feel more human. So we've got facial animations and emotional interactions between men. So, for instance, if my buddy gets hit by an arrow, I'm going to react to that, whereas they haven't done in the past. We want to make the combat feel much more human, much more brutal and visceral, with a real sense of impact. I mean, it's part of what we're calling the human face of Total War. We're trying to make, both on the campaign map and on the battlefield, we're trying to bring out the kind of human level elements of the game. We're trying to make the men feel more convincingly human, and it really adds to the sense of immersion, I think, and it reinforces the kind of awesome power that this engine can deliver when you see that human level combat close up, and then you zoom out and see it played across thousands. We think that both ends of the scale, they really reinforce each other. Well, you know, whenever we look at the campaign map, we have to think about the balance in terms of how far units can move each turn, how far armies can move each turn. If it's too small, it can be annoying, but if it's too big, it undermines the strategic value of production centers, because it means you can easily produce anywhere and then move those armies anywhere for free, pretty much. So you know, it's always something that we've got to balance. But in terms of streamlining the management of armies, one thing that we wanted to do is really focus the player on thinking about armies rather than individual units. So you know, a Roman emperor would be, they wouldn't be thinking about, oh, do I move this unit of archers up to join that unit of cavalry, right, on the campaign map. A Roman emperor would be thinking, you know, the 8th Legion has been damaged in battle, I need to bring up the 10th Legion to reinforce it. You know, that level of strategy is done on an army level. So what we're doing is we're wanting to create a real concept of, you know, the Legion, and each legion will have its own character, its own history. So we've got this idea of the legacy of the past fighting exploits of that legion, and that's going to have real combat effects in the game. And those effects aren't just like the traits of a general, so they'll outlive the general. So we're doing lots of things to kind of encourage the player to be really thinking about managing a legion rather than lots of individual units on the campaign map. I think in terms of whether the player can upgrade units, we always look at that with each title. You know, it's nice to be able to upgrade units. At the same time, it can create in an optimizing player, it can get annoying because you feel that you actually have to go in every single army you've got. You feel you have to get upgraded. So you know, we've got to be careful about that and make sure that we do it in a way that is really fun to play. And we're thinking very carefully about exactly how that how unit upgrades are going to work. Because obviously in the Roman era you've got things like the Marian reforms, so you know, units do change and develop over time, so obviously we've got to get that in the game. Well, there's a load of factions in the game, and what we're going to do that's different from before is that the playable factions are going to be playable from the start. So you know, Rome is not going to be the only playable faction. But we're not ready to like reveal the exact list. We're still working out you know, some of the details of precisely what that list is. But you know, we're going to be having, you know, these set of playable factions available from the start.
Many games are choosing a scenario of World War II, but I really see very less games with World War I. Would it be some nice idea to have Total War, World War I?
Well, that's an interesting idea. I mean, we've got a stack of, we have a kind of stack of ideas of settings that we would love to do, we would love to portray in Total War. It's really about choosing the order in which we do them. So you know, I think that could make a viable setting. You never know. Maybe we'll do it one day. But you know, obviously there'd be some interesting design challenges. You know, stalemates on the campaign map perhaps. But yeah, there's a ton of different settings that I think could work really well. And we're always you know, debating what to do next and what interesting areas we'd like to cover.
So as last question, is in your stack also a scenario like Total War Prehistoric Age?
That would, yeah. But you know, we did actually release I think a kind of April Fool where we were going to do Dinosaurs Total War. But again, like I said, there's a ton of options, and it's really about the order in which we do them.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.